Hi everyone, Amy here with some final wrap-up comments on our first discussion of the semester last week. Great job with this, by the way. I think everyone worked really hard and it was good to get to know you guys a little bit better through your strengths and also see how you thought you might apply those to your learning over the course of the next several weeks. Before I get into my feedback though, I just want to highlight, since it's the beginning of our semester and we're still kind of getting our feet wet and getting used to the lay of the course, the Welcome to Week 2 news item that I posted yesterday morning. I will put these out at the beginning of every single week. Remember that our weeks do run Monday through Sunday, so every Monday morning you'll get up and see this very first post, and it will have all the things that you need to accomplish for that particular week. I do want to highlight that I will always be posting these final discussion feedback comments somewhere toward the beginning of each week for the previous week's discussion, like I'm doing right now. So if you get in to the course a little bit late for the week, say maybe Tuesday afternoon, and I've already posted my feedback for the discussion, be sure you do scroll down and highlight or note the objectives that you need to accomplish for the week in my welcome post. So if you don't get in right Monday morning, this might not be the very first thing that you see in your news, is basically what I'm getting at. But you can also see the objectives that you need to accomplish for each week always in the description for the week's module in content. So right now we are in week 2. And you can see that I have kind of a bulleted list here of everything that you need to do for the week, and this is just going to follow along exactly with what I've written in my news post for that particular week. So if you have any questions about how I'm using news to communicate with you guys or what you need to accomplish each week, please be sure to send me an email like you would with anything else. Okay, so like I said, I was really pleased to see how deeply you guys were engaging with each other in particular in the discussion last week, especially because it was our very first discussion, like I said. So it's pretty cool that you guys are already so comfortable with each other this early in the semester, especially because we only have 10 weeks, being that it's summer. So I always worry, you know, are we going to get as deeply engaged with one another in such a short period of time? But it seems like you guys are already well on your way to doing that. So that's probably one of my biggest takeaways this week, and one of the things that I'm most pleased to have seen and most excited about. But I do want to do a little bit of 5 minutes of fame for you guys, since I saw some really insightful things coming out. In my midweek comments, I focused mainly on your original posts, and so here I'm going to focus more on the subsequent discussion that took place through the comments that you guys provided one another for Friday's deadline, and then also the final reflections that everyone provided on their overall threads at the end of the week. Which, by the way, you guys did a great job with. Everyone posted their final reflections within their own original thread, and so that is really cool to see because people have struggled with that in the past, and so that's exactly what you guys should be doing. You all negotiated the technical aspects of the discussion last week very, very well. Okay, so just jumping into some of the highlights here, I will start with the comments. This first person I'm going to highlight had several really insightful comments, and it's just something I wanted to pull out because it provides an example of the kind of in-depth thinking and extension that I'm looking for when you comment on each other's original post to kind of push the conversation in a new direction. So this person says, I like what you said about inner and intra personalities and how they can be complete opposites, but a lot of people can have both kinds of intelligences. I think any time a person is strong in two intelligences, there can be a synergistic effect on both of them. For example, if you have a clear and confident self-identity, you will be able to more easily convey yourself to groups of people in a social setting. If you have strong social skills, you will know when it's appropriate to listen or when to offer your opinion. Some people with strong social skills but with a weak self-intelligence will fall into a hive mentality when they are with other people. Then on the flip side, someone with a strong self-intelligence but weak social skills can be introverted in public, or a complete braggart who can only see her point of view. Appreciate the mixed pronouns here, by the way. So I thought this was really insightful. You can tell that this person obviously has a very strong intrapersonal intelligence of their own because they seem to understand themselves and other people very well. So intra and inter, I would actually say. And this was kind of common theme that came up in several of the original threads, the kind of interplay between intrapersonal intelligence and interpersonal intelligence. I do think it's really cool that one of the common threads we saw is that most of you are strong in one or the other of those. And so I'm really excited to get to know you guys, because it seems like you guys are all pretty strong socially, or at least know yourselves very well. And so just the kind of insight and in-depth thinking we see here in terms of kind of psychoanalyzing, not to use such a strong word, or for lack of a better term, but that this person is doing, I thought was really in-depth and just kind of insightful and interesting, and it's the kind of thing I want to have a conversation about. And so that's what I'm really looking for in comments to one another. How can you push the conversation further? How can you make it more engaging? And I think this person's comments definitely did that, so I wanted to pull those out here. This person as well, I also scored very high on the math logic section with a 4.57. I really like the activities suggested, such as finding the origins of words as well. To be truthful, I often do this unintentionally when I realize that different words have similar roots. Some of the other activities would be less helpful, but I think they would still be interesting to try. I'm generally the other way around regarding learning facts versus learning rules. I generally find it easier to learn rules and apply them in different situations than learning facts. Often, I find facts that I think are interesting, but if you ask me what they are in just a few hours later, I will have trouble remembering them. So I wanted to pull this one out because it does a couple of things. First of all, it addresses the prompt. It's not just kind of off in a different direction. It still is engaging with what I wanted you guys to be talking about in your posts in general. And so, you know, kind of highlighting some of the suggestions for how you can use the information in the test to influence your learning and your success this semester. And I also kind of thought it was cool that this person says, I've noticed myself doing this unintentionally, because I think that's one of the things I personally have noticed about the test, is it taps into some things I didn't even realize I was already doing. And so I always think that's a good test when it kind of helps you get to know yourself a little bit better in ways that you didn't know you already knew, if that makes sense. And so I thought it was very insightful that this person pulled that out. But I also wanted to highlight this particular comment because I wanted to show you guys that you don't always have to agree or say that the activity was good and helpful or that you learned a lot from it. I mean, I'm just really looking for some deep thinking here. That's kind of what this class is about. And so if you want to kind of challenge each other or challenge the material in some way, kind of like the person's doing here in this second paragraph, by all means, feel free to do so. I want you to feel like discussions are the appropriate venue for you to do that, and I want you to feel comfortable being able to do that. So I was glad and appreciated seeing that here. And then one final comment I wanted to pull out. I don't know if you read Rebecca Malthus's post, but she also had a high score for kinesthetic intelligence. She described something that was useful to her that I thought was really neat. To help her learn organic chemistry, she would write out what she was studying with ketchup before eating her fries. I thought this was great because I think a lot of people skip that writing is a physical activity and perhaps something important for kinesthetic intelligence. Maybe try it. This was an awesome post because this is a connection between 3 different students. And in an online class, that is really, I hate to say rare, but it's something worth celebrating at least. And so for this person to say, hi, I'm commenting on your post, I wanted to refer you to another student's post, that's kind of like a more tangled web of engagement, and that's really what I'm looking for in the discussion. So I was very excited to see that in general at any time in the semester, but especially so here in this first week. And then I did think this was one of the best examples that came out of the discussion as a whole. Way to go, Rebecca, on coming up with the writing out your words with ketchup with your fries. That's a great way to remember things. And I also really like what this person has said here about the fact that writing is a kinesthetic activity. I personally was a note taker in college. I wrote everything down by hand, and I don't even think I ever went back and looked at my notes, but the fact that I wrote it down by hand was what helped me learn it, because then I saw it, I felt it, and I knew it. And so if you're one of those people that's kinesthetic, don't think that writing is just a linguistic action. It's also a physical action, much different than typing, so I'm talking about handwriting here, but I would encourage you to go and try that as a strategy. So I liked all of these comments because they added things to the discussion, they tied into the original prompt, they had good suggestions, And they were just really engaging, and they helped you guys get to know each other better. So I really appreciate all your hard work in comments. Along with that, I just wanted to highlight a couple threads overall that I thought were in general representative of the kind of back and forth discourse that I'm looking for in discussions. One of those I saw was in Stephen's original thread, so let me go to that. I know I mentioned in my midweek comments something about checking in frequently and replying to the comments you received to kind of keep the conversation going, and I wanted to highlight a couple of places where I saw that happening. So here we have Stephen's original post, and then Garrett replies, as does Rebecca. Then Stephen replies directly to Rebecca, and then there's another student that weighs in here, and then Garrett, who originally commented, came back and checked. So not only is he checking on his own original thread, but he's checking on the threads to which he has commented. Thanks, Garrett. As some of you might have noticed, Garrett is a veteran in this class, so he knows what he's doing. Pay attention. So that was really engaging. And then Stephen comes back and offers his overall reflection at the end. And so this is something I wanted to highlight because you'll notice that Stephen's comments directly to his classmates are separate from his overall reflection at the end. And that's really what I want to see. So the reflection at the end is not you replying to each of the comments you received. You are certainly welcome to do that, but the reflection at the end is more of a synthesis of everything you learned from the discussion that week, what you saw in other people's posts, as well as what you saw or talked about in the comments you received, or any just general overall feedback you want to provide about the activity as a whole. So good job, Stephen, negotiating the complexity of the assignment in this first week. I know it's kind of complicated, and so I appreciated you guys kind of just jumping in feet first and going for it and being successful. So another place I saw that was in Matthew's original thread. Here it is. Just like I just highlighted, you have Matthew's original post, Daniel's reply, then Matthew goes in and replies directly to Daniel with a very insightful comment. Then he gets another comment from another student, but his final reflection is separate. What I wanted to highlight here is that Matthew says, with all of these similarities and differences, I am impelled to consider other suggestions for learning. I'm challenging daily my weaknesses in writing. And reading to improve myself. I'm willing to and even ecstatic about becoming a better writer throughout this course. I'm sure I will accomplish my goals. And this was a really strong reflection, but it's one that I wish would be just a little bit more specific. So when you're saying here I'm impelled to consider other suggestions for my learning, give me some examples. And that will show me what you took away from the discussion part of the activity that kind of built on what you were able to say in your original post. So what did you learn from, for example, Thursday to Sunday that you can add to what you had posted originally? And I just want to pull out a couple other highlights from the reflections. We only have a couple minutes left, so forgive me if I get cut off. But this person says, I think when someone is very far one way on the intro versus interpersonality scale, then those skills might start to clash. Speaking for myself, somewhere in the middle helps me tremendously. Like you said, Amy, it does make me a more well-rounded person. It seems that many of our classmates are the same. After reading other posts, it seems like the test focused on too particular of traits on certain categories, which is why my natural results seemed off. While I do like to hike, I have no desire to know what kind of tree I'm looking at, etc. It didn't provide any new insight to myself. It made me rethink my study habits and how to make better learning choices. So I really appreciated this because it kind of synthesized everything in that one particular theme that came up about intra versus interpersonal intelligence, or both. And then I also kind of liked that this person reflected on some of their criticisms of the activity, but then tied it into what the real purpose of the activity was. It wasn't necessarily to help you get to know yourself better. It's not a personality test. The goal is to help you learn how to apply your strengths to some particular strategies that will help you be successful in your classes. Just a couple last ones here. I don't know if you can see both of them. Feel free to pause if you have to, because I'm going to get cut off in about 25 seconds. But this person just says, I really like thinking and talking about multiple intelligences. Some examples here that I thought were really actionable and very constructive in terms of how to apply musical strengths. And so take a look at this comment to see how you could use that strength if you are a musical person. And then this person had just like a nice synthesis as well. So I'm going to get cut off.